Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 17, Special Occasion Speaking. Previously, we've been discussing the fundamentals of public speaking as well as informative speaking. That speaks to the speech goal of informing, and those are the fundamentals of public speaking. Now we're going to be jumping into something slightly different with a different speech goal of entertaining, the special occasion speech. And this speaks to our culture. Our culture is based in ideas and values that really resonate with us, and that is what makes these special occasion speeches, number one, entertaining, and number two, act as the glue for our culture a lot of the time. So let's jump right in with what are special occasion speeches, also called ceremonial speeches. They are delivered at ceremonial occasions. They have elements of both informative and persuasive. They are informative in that they are informing what this event, who this person means, and also the persuasive aspect, where it persuades that this situation, this person, has great value. It also aims at strengthening the bonds between speaker and listeners and between the listeners and themselves. In a ceremonial or special occasion speech, what happens is that someone communicates their ideas out into the audience, and then the audience identifies around those values. What are some of the things that we hold dear in our culture? And when you watch ceremonial speeches, what you will realize is that they are when they are impactful, they are communicating to those same ideas and values so that it resonates with the audience and builds connections between the listener and the speaker, but also when the whole audience reacts to those values, they bond together, building a sense of community because they all agree that this idea, this person has this value that is presented in a ceremonial speech. So now let's just start discussing the key parts of ceremonial speeches. First, events or stories that are related to a person or occasion is the fundamental part of special occasion speeches. The reason why is because stories engage the audience further, and also that we see and experience in a more visceral way this situation so that we start to feel with the entire audience. Also, it helps articulate the audience's unexpressed feelings, which is called resonance, as the words echo those of the listeners. This is an important part of ceremonial speeches as well, because those things that we hold most dear, those things that we really care about, we tend not to communicate. We tend not to express, because the thought is that if this means a lot to us and I communicate it and someone rejects that value, then that is very threatening to my identity. So, when I communicate that information, that personal information that is relevant to everyone, then it is unexpressed feelings that everyone feels. And then when the entire audience identifies around those unexpressed ideas, that is a cathartic experience, feeling that we are not alone and that we are all part of this community. And using a mix of stories, images, arguments with the appropriate tone for the occasion is another important part of ceremonial speeches, because as we've said before, that with stories, but with all of these, that it engages the audience further, but also keeping in mind that it has to be appropriate tone for the occasion. These special ceremonial speeches are based in context, and they live or die by their connection to that context. Because if it ends up being a situation where I communicate something that is not appropriate in this given situation, it is very easily rejected. So we have to be sure we're appropriate. Also, we should strive to build to an emotional climax. Again, getting that reaction from the audience that the rest of the audience can see. Also, a length that is carefully controlled due to situational context, and humor that contributes but not distracts from the presentation. Humor is incredibly important as well because, as we've stated time and time and time again, that when the audience sees the same value attribution towards a certain idea or a certain value, then that is a very good experience because they feel that they are not alone in those value attributions. For example, if someone, talks about how America is great, then if the entire audience agrees, they will communicate that by nodding, by using positive and affirming nonverbal communication. When the entire audience sees that, then they all are a part of that. What happens at movie theaters? We watch this movie, this part of the movie that we all identify around because we all value it as good or sometimes even as bad. Humor especially is important with this because humor is uncontrollable in its reaction. That I communicate something funny, the entire audience laughs, and the entire audience has confirmation that indeed the entire audience agrees that that is indeed funny because everyone laughed. So let's now talk about the different types of ceremonial speeches. Speeches of introduction, award presentation, and acceptance are going to be what we are going to cover in the first section. And then in the second section, we're going to cover eulogies, toasts, after dinner speeches, and keynote speeches. So we start with speeches of introduction. The goal of this sort of speech of introduction is to make the speaker feel welcome, provide the listeners with relevant information about the speaker, contribute to the speaker's ethos. Also, when doing this, mention only significant accomplishments that are directly related to the occasion. Let's take a step back on this because what is the goal of a special occasion speech in general? To communicate a value or idea that the audience can identify around. What is a speech of introduction? What value is it putting out there? That this person who I am about to introduce is valuable, and that what they are going to say is going to be valuable as well. And just like that, it conforms to the special occasion speech scheme that we are creating. So when we make them feel welcome, when we provide relevant information about them, we are communicating their value. When we communicate all of their accomplishments that are directly related to the occasion as well as to the audience, that communicates their value. And we want to avoid overly lavishing praise because we don't want that to diminish their credibility or their value. And we also don't want to take the spotlight. That it is not that we are valuable, it is that they are valuable. And by communicating that, it builds this idea of their value so that the entire audience can form around that idea. Some tips are avoiding what the speaker will say and be sure that you know their name, because if you mispronounce their name, then that doesn't communicate their value. In fact, it does quite the opposite. Next, we have award presentation speeches. And this very much talks to the value of a person. What are some of the awards people receive? They do it for art. They do it for science. They do it for achievement. Achievement is a big part of our American culture, communicating the value of such achievement not just communicates the value of the person who's getting the award, but also the value of the award itself. So, when presenting an award of recognition to someone based on achievement, that is when this type of speech occurs. You should establish the importance of the award itself and the values it represents, or the person for which it is named. What are some of the values represented by the Oscar, by the Nobel Peace Prize, by a participation award? Also, relate the winner's fitness to achieve such an award with a participation award. Let's think about this. What value is presented, is placed on a person who receives a participation award? Effort, struggling through challenge, all of which are values that we can all get behind. And explains the selection process for choosing the recipient, if that has happened, and present the award. When you do that, present with your left and shake with your right hand because you don't want it to be awkward. And then lastly, we have an acceptance of an award. This communicates the value of the award, but this one's a little bit interesting because in essence, you are communicating your value for receiving the award, but is it about me? Not particularly. It's more about the values that made it so that I was able to win this award. So it's given when receiving an award or recognition. Express gratitude for the honor that the award represents. Again, it is about what the award represents, not about you. And that means that we have to be modest. Thanking those who presented the award for the honor that they've shown you, expressing gratitude for those who helped make it possible for you to receive this award, but keep this list brief, and indicate your understanding of the values that the award represents to show you that you appreciate being honored. Again, it is about the values that come from such an award. Because why is it that people watch acceptance of awards? Because we see that value as very important. And when someone accepts and receives an award like that, then they are held up as this ideal, that they embody the value that this award represents. Next, we're going to be talking about eulogies in the next section.